Welcome to the first video in a new series I'm doing on trapping snapping turtles. Snappers are, in my opinion, a greatly underutilized resource. They're plentiful, widely available, easy to catch, and they have a lot of meat on them per pound of live body weight. They're a great food resource that is largely overlooked. Now in this video, we're going to talk about 3 ways to catch snapping turtles: hooking or setting bank lines, using cage traps, and using net traps. Let's talk about hooks. Hooking is probably the simplest, easiest, and cheapest method to take turtles. All you need is some bank line, a hook, and some bait. You bait the hook, toss it in the water, you come back the next day and check your lines and see if you caught anything. I've used hooks in the past, but I no longer use them unless the property owner simply wants me to remove as many turtles as possible. I'd use them in a survival situation as well. The reason I don't like hooking turtles is that once a turtle's hooked, that's it. He's pretty much going to die. Most of the time they get hooked deep down in the throat, and the hook's going to remain in the throat until you butcher the animal. What this means is that you can't let the little ones go. You can't be selective about your catch. Now when I do set hooks, I like to use treble hooks that are completely buried in the bait. As far as line goes, I like to use a regular bank line or a mason's twine. Now people have asked me about using wire leaders to reduce losses, because once the turtle chews through the line and gets away, it's pretty bad because that turtle's probably going to die and you never got to harvest him. Now I've tried everything all the way up to 16 gauge tie wire as far as leaders are concerned, and what I've found is the stronger the leader that you use, the fewer bites you're going to get, but the more turtles you're going to hold. The smaller the line you use, the more bites you'll get, but the more turtles that you're going to lose. So in the end, you've just got to find a good compromise for the turtles in your area and how you're trapping them. In my case, I just use a good quality tarred size 18 nylon seine twine. One final tip as far as hooks is I like to use a bait that's going to stay on the hook solidly. Turtles are pretty much vicious eaters, and they'll try to shred the bait with their claws before they eat it. I like to take a square piece of beaver pelt and embed it on a treble hook. It's got chunks of meat on it, it's got fat, and beaver is a natural part of turtles' diet. It's almost impossible to remove a piece of beaver pelt from a treble hook once you've got it embedded in the hooks. So this is a great bait. Another way to catch turtles is with nets. Now these traps look a lot like catfish hoop nets, and they work the same way. You basically stretch the net out in shallow water, and you tie the ends off of the net, or you keep the net stretched out somehow using poles or PVC poles. You place the bait in a bait bag, and the turtles swim into the trap and get caught. But you have to remember that turtles have to be able to breathe. So the net has to be in water that's shallow enough so that some portion of the net trap is exposed above the water. Now this can be a problem if you're in an area where the water level rises and falls, because if your catch drowns, it's going to spoil rapidly, especially in warm weather. Nets are lightweight. They collapse, and you can carry a lot of them in a little space. However, they do require more maintenance than wire cages, because turtles can tear them up. Other things, if you're in an area in the deep south, alligators can chew through them, so there's a lot that can happen to a net. A net also takes more effort to set up and take down because you have to anchor the ends and stretch it out, etc., etc. Now cage traps are big, they're heavy, they're bulky, but they're also very easy to set and they require very little maintenance. While you can fit a dozen nets in a john boat, you're probably not going to fit a dozen cage traps in a john boat. Now cages can be either floating or non-floating cages. The non-floating kind are simply set in shallow water with a portion of the cage exposed so that turtles can get some air. Some people will build their cages with a section of hog panel on the top. This provides a much wider opening. What this does is this allows smaller turtles to escape, and it allows the larger turtles to stick their heads up and out of the water and still breathe. With this type of design, you can set your cage a few inches underwater to theft-proof it, and your turtles won't drown. Now personally, I like to use a floating cage trap. Specifically, I use the Quarrels turtle trap. The Quarrel's trap is a floating, round cage that's designed to float with the mouth of the trap facing downstream, and this is important. It also has a nice bait box that's accessible from outside the trap. It has a net throat, and it's very simple to set. You simply put the bait in the bait box, throw it in the water, and you tie it off to a branch or use an anchor. With a floating cage, you don't have to worry about rising or falling water levels since it floats. This is a big advantage in my area because a lot of rivers here are dam controlled. So you don't know from day to day if the water level is going to go up or going to go down, regardless of what the weather's doing. So for me in my area, this is my go-to trap. Now, as far as general trapping tips, now turtles like to hunt in the shallows, so in a lake or a pond you need to set up around shallow areas. They also like cover, just like a big bass, so think bass fishing and edges. I find that any place that's a good beaver area will probably be a good snapper area. So I regularly trap all of my beaver ponds for snappers. It's free meat, and it's a great way to keep track of your winter trapping spots throughout the off-season. Personally, I've never had a landowner tell me not to trap snappers if they have me in there trapping beavers. Now for bait, you want something that's going to lay down an oil slick. You want an oil slick drifting downstream to attract the turtles, and you want the throat of your trap facing downstream to make it easy for them to swim into. Now anybody that's done summertime beaver control knows just how fast a drowned beaver will get eaten by snappers. They'll literally pick it apart in hours. Now I like to use oily fish, catfish heads, chunks of beaver tail, pieces of beaver pelt, and things like that. One final tip is to check your traps early in the morning. Turtles can, and given enough time, they will escape these traps. I've seen it happen. So thanks for watching, and I hope this has been useful. So now that we've got the basics down, let's go catch some turtles. Stay tuned.